to this, it's the C plus I plus G. And so GDP is what makes up aggregate demand. So this is all the goods and services that buyers are willing and able to purchase at different price levels. So demand for everything by everyone in the United States. So here is the equation. GDP is consumption plus investment plus government spending plus export minus import. And this number has been negative because we actually import more than we export. And so, which is unfortunate, but that's just kind of how our economy is right now. And so the determinants of this are change in consumer spending, like we talked about, consumer wealth, increase in stock market or things of this nature, consumer expectations, poor expectations for the economy, household indebtedness. Are people more in debt now than they were before? Taxes, less taxes means more money, more taxes means less money. Then you got investment spending. Real interest rates, price of borrowing money. If real interest rates are high, if real interest rates are low, that's going to, again, impact whether or not people want to investment spend. If you remember, the real interest rate's low, people are going to want to investment spend. If they're high, they're not going to. Government spending, again, like war, this can increase aggregate demand or decrease it. But war, government spending, infrastructure, government spending, those types of things will increase government, increase that. And the national income compared to abroad. And what if major importer has a recession? And then you also have exchange rate. And notice these are the components of GDP. And so I was going to, this is all hopefully just easy review for you. Aggregate supply. Aggregate supply is the amount of goods and services that a firm will produce in an economy at different price levels. Aggregate supply differentiate between the short run and long run, and that's two different curves. I put on your guys' review sheet something I thought, I forgot to mention this to you guys, but it's always funny, from John Maynard Keynes. In the long run, we're all dead. So he doesn't think about long run. He always thinks about short run. We're talking about these types of things. So short run aggregate supply, wages and resource prices will not increase as price levels increase. Long run aggregate supply, wage and resource prices will increase as price levels increase. So short run versus long run. Remember, long run straight up and down. Short run's just your normal supply curve. And prices will not increase as price levels increase. But in the long run, they do. And this is what the short run aggregate supply looks like. Price level goes up, output goes up. Price level, output. There's that direct connection. Long run is straight up and down. Long run aggregate supply. Price level increases, but GDP doesn't. So price level increases, but GDP doesn't increase. We also assume that in the long run, the economy will be producing at full employment. So there's full employment, and in the long run. So remember IRAP, or just RAP, for the Schitzer's aggregate supply. So you have resource price, or input price, domestic resource price, price of imported goods, actions of the government, business taxes on producers, subsidies to producers, government regulation, and productivity and technology, technological breakthroughs, and increases in productivity. Those are the things that shift the supply curve to the right or to the left. But if you remember the acronym IRAP, that'll help, or just RAP in general. Am I okay to move on here?
Yeah.
And the ratchet effect is inflation. Falling prices often occur in reality very rarely. If prices were to fall, the cost of resources must fall, or firms will go out of business. So the cost of resources, especially labor, rarely falls. And like your ratchet, prices can easily move up, but not down. And we're kind of seeing that now in our economy, how prices go up, but essentially don't go down. It's kind of the effect of what we have right now. All right, I am going to real quick switch it to here. And this is that you guys have this document. I put it on there. And so I was just going to draw this for you, if you remember. Now this is just what they had on there. And then at full employment, it would be here. So that's what that should look like. I can't get this thing to be. And do you remember the negative output gap? Let's do that together. All right, buddy. So can you tell me where's negative output gap? What do I do?
Demand shift left? Or...
Well, no, we're starting negative output gap.
Oh. Then just...
Where's long run? Is it here?
No, to the right.
It's here?
Yeah.
So what does negative output gap mean?
Below full employment.
Okay, so this is a recessionary gap. This is where we want to be, and this is where we are. And then you would have to, like you said, how we get out of this, you shift demand, typically. Okay. And let's do negative or positive output gap. I know this might seem silly to do all this stuff, but this is
I just need to review. I just need to get stuff in my head.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so how do we get out of this one again? So is this positive or negative?
Positive.
Okay. Okay, what's gonna shift?
Demand.
Yeah. You are correct. So yeah, to get out of that. Oh, I had full employment on here twice. I didn't realize that. Let me see. Okay, yeah. So to get out of this, you would have to. Well, demand would shift to the left, or supply would shift to the left. But typically, that's what would happen. What about the recession self-adjust? So you draw this again, right? And then now shift it if you can. How about you try it on your own, and then I'll do it with you, if you can.
I mean, what do you mean, like self-adjust?
Just like what you said. So we're in a recession, right?
Uh-huh.
What's going to happen to self-adjust to this? Like, how are we gonna fix that?
I mean, the demand will increase, and then just because of.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what that is.
okay. So if the self-adjust would be just this, like you said. If we're here and we're in recessionary gap, right? Going here back to full employment is self-adjusting. And then inflation self-adjusting too. Same kind of thing. So if you go here, and then self-adjusting would be, you could do either one, but that's what that would look like. And apparently I put those on there twice, but that's what that is. Okay, let's go back to classical versus Keynesian. Yeah, you could either one of these supply could shift to the right or to the left. Adam. Either one of these. We did demand, but you could also do supply. Shifting to the right or to the left. If it's and don't forget I didn't label, but this would be this would be full employment. And this this would be Y1. And then you have supply, which shifts to the left for some reason. And then that would be that. Yeah. All right. Let's go back to this Keynesian. If you remember in the Keynesian model versus the classic model, real quick, what that looks like.
Yeah.
So the classic school of economics, price of resources, wages are very flexible. And a change in aggregate demand results in no change output even in the short run. And aggregate demand can't increase without inflation. So this is what you would have. Essentially, that's the classic school of economics right there. Recessions caused by fall in aggregate demand are only temporary. And that would be that. And so this is the classic look. Price level will fall and the economy will fix itself. So if the price level falls, the economy will fix itself. That's kind of the, that, remember the Adam Smith laissez-faire approach, kind of let hands off, let the economy fix itself. Let's not have the government get too involved in trying to fix or correct things. So that's essentially what the classic model is. I'm going to switch over. So no government involvement is required. The economy will just adjust. People take lower wages, things of this nature. Now, Keynesian, this is when, remember I just told you, in the long run, we're all dead because he doesn't care about the long run. So the Keynesian school, price of resources are sticky. A fall in aggregate demand will not lead to a decrease in price level because wages don't fall. And an increase in aggregate demand will result in inflation only if the economy is approaching physical capacity. So you have this weird looking graph. And then there's aggregate demand right here. So if aggregate demand falls, price level will not fall because wages are sticky. It's just like I'm not going to, you and me and your dad, we're not going to take a pay cut, right? We're very rarely. That's what it means by wages are sticky. Yeah, it's like they don't come down that much. And so this would be, this here would be a symbol of like a recession. And so recessionary gap must be fixed by the government. And so if we're in a recessionary gap, you increase aggregate demand. How do you go from here? Well, he said in order to do that, the government must spend. And you're not worried about the long run, because the long run, when you got all that spending, you're increasing the size of government. You're not worried about that because, again, he doesn't care about the long run. So there's the intermediate range, or this is the Keynesian range. The intermediate range assumed right there. And this is the vertical classic range. And so here, we're like more recessionary. This is kind of intermediate, full employment right here. And this would be considered inflationary with the classic model. Turn that off. I had this right here, and the graph above, aggregate demand donates the aggregate demand curve. The short run supply, aggregate supply curve, the long run aggregate supply curve. If no policy action were taken, which of the following changes would move the economy into the long run equilibrium? Okay, so we're here. What is this? Negative or positive output gap?
Positive.
Okay, so it's a positive. So is it going to be an increase?
No.
How about this? Increase in wages?
No.
Decrease in wages? That would be the one getting us back here.
No.
I know we just said wages are sticky, but that's a Keynesian model, a decrease in the expected price level. But right here, to get back to this, that's what you're looking at. You see how that is?
Mm-hmm.
That would have to shift over. That would be that, a decrease in wages. All right, stabilizing the economy. The government has two different toolboxes it can use. We'll go to Phillips curve here in a moment and do Phillips curve and aggregate demand in a second. The fiscal policy actions by Congress to stabilize the economy, or monetary policy. So hopefully you remember what monetary policy is. We just did that, and fiscal policy to stabilize the economy. So two types of fiscal policy: discretionary. Congress creates a new bill that is designed to change aggregate demand. through government spending or taxation, non-discretionary, automatic stabilizers, permanent spending or taxation laws enacted to work counter-cyclically to stabilize the economy. So think about automatic stabilizers. Those are like tax rates and those things that are already in the economy that will shift it to the right or to the left. Welfare, unemployment, minimum wage, etc. Those types of things. So fiscal policy of expansionary. The goal is to reduce unemployment and increase real GDP or increase GDP. You increase government spending, you decrease taxes, and any combination of the two is expansionary fiscal policy, and that is trying to shift the aggregate demand curve to the right. Contractionary fiscal policy, trying to reduce inflation, decrease GDP, decrease government spending, tax increases, and any combination of the two. So if you increase taxes, less consumer spending, that shifts aggregate demand to the left. And so that would again be the thing that would be okay here. All right, multiplier effect. I got one person for my review, so yeah. Well, I put it out last minute, and so.
And he's the overachiever.
Well, hopefully they show up in the afternoon. If they don't, then more power to them. That they're going to do well. But the thing that kills me, they're the only reason I'm here today.
So second period, you got them all in the library.
Yeah, I'll do them all in the library. We're just going to do a practice test, go over some FRQs. So enjoy today and enjoy tomorrow.
For sure.
All right.
You want to set up Thursday?
I said, yeah, I
Okay,
can do
so
it.
fourth, you're good.
Yeah. So an initial change in spending will set off a spending chain resulting in economic growth. Multiplier effect. The multiplier effect shows how spending is magnified in the economy. And if you remember, marginal propensity to save, marginal propensity to consume kind of thing. So marginal propensity to consume, MPC, how much people consume rather than save when there is a change in income. It's always expressed as a fraction or a decimal. And marginal propensity to save, how much people save rather than consume when there's a change in income. Always, again, expressed as a fraction or a decimal. If I'm going too fast, buddy, just tell me. Okay. So let's practice calculating. Remember, it's 1 divided by marginal propensity to save, or 1 minus 1 marginal propensity. This is the one that I'd recommend. That's probably the easiest one, if you remember. So if marginal propensity to consume is 0.9, what is the multiplier? So how would you solve that?
1 over 0.1.
It'd be what?
1 over 0.1. Yeah.
Yeah, 1 divided by 0.1, and it gives you what? 10. Perfect. If marginal propensity consumed, and so you get the idea. Okay, I don't need to go over all this. So let's take a look at this. The marginal propensity to consume is 0.75, and we have $5 billion initial spending increase. Where would it go? Again, the full 20 billion increase in aggregate demand would be a little bit different. So here, marginal propensity to consume is 0.8. So what would it be to fill the gap? What do we need to do?
What's the equation?
It's 1 divided by, it'd be 0.2.
Oh, what's the
The equation, you want me to go back to that? It's this right here.
No, the other one that you need.
For this?
Yeah, don't you need to?
You just need that one.
It's like AD equals.
No.
No.
For this? No, you just need, this is telling you what's the type of gap, contractionary, expansionary, what are the two options to fix it, and how much initial government spending is needed. Okay, let's do it together. 100 billion, because the multiplier is 5. And so type of gap, what would this be? Recessionary. And so you would need expansionary, and the two options. Remember, you can decrease taxes, increase government spending, and how much initial would be 100 billion. I mean, we don't have to do all these. You have, if you look at your sheet, you have 2 of these. there, right here. So just extra practice if you want it, right here. And then other stuff about fiscal policy. I can go over this with you guys, but I just put this on there so you guys can have some extra stuff for you. But anyway, let me bring this back. All right. Problems with fiscal policy. A budget deficit is when the government's expenditure exceeds its revenue. So you have a deficit spending, and the national debt is the accumulation of all budget deficits over time. Now, why is this a problem? Because we spend money we shouldn't be because we're just spending to try to get out of debt. And if the government increases spending without increasing taxes, they will increase the annual deficit and the national debt. And so this is the hard part, Adam, is most people don't want to be, most government officials or politicians, they don't want to increase taxes and increase, spending. They can't do both. And so because of that, because increasing taxes will make people mad, then what happens is you get more and more in debt. So there's the problem. So 4 additional problems of timing, recognition lag. Congress must react to economic indicators before it's too late. Kind of what we're doing now. Like, oh, we're in inflation. Oh, really? You think so? And so with the federal, the Fed trying to impact interest rates and the government trying to figure out how we're going to stop this recession, or this inflation. The only problem is, though, does the government want to work together to get this done? Probably not, because it's all partisan politics. So administrative lag, Congress takes too long to pass. Operational lag, spending planning takes time. Policy, politically motivated policies, I kind of just mentioned that. They don't necessarily, politicians are not politically motivated. The crowding out effect. Remember, government spending might cause unintended effects that weaken the impact of the policy. Government increases aggregate demand, but must borrow money. The increase for the price for money, the interest rate, and the interest rate rise, so investment to fall. So remember, so that crowds it out when you're doing that. And the government crowds out consumers or investors when it does this. Here's a couple questions if you want to try to answer them. Suppose that a national government increased deficit spending on goods and services, increasing its demand for loanable funds. In the long run, this policy would most likely result in which of the following changes in the country? So we increase deficit spending on goods and services, increasing its demand for loanable funds. So in the long run, this policy would most likely result in which of the following changes in the country?
Increase investment or interest rate.
Okay, so you think it's one of these two? If it's increased, then it's decreased, right? Well, if they increase the demand for loanable funds, so the real interest rate will increase because the demand will, and that'll decrease investment. And so, yeah. And then, oopsies, the other one, if the government increases expenditures on goods and services and increases taxation at the same time, which of the following will occur? So the government increases expenditures on goods and services and increases taxation. Which of the following will occur?
It'll be unchanged.
Yeah. Why?
Because it balances out.
Yeah. Basically cancels each other out. Good. If you want to, we can review real quick, because now we're getting to monetary policy, a little more unit 4. Let's take a look at let me go here. Let's take a look at the Phillips curve. And do you remember the Phillips curve?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of. Well, what about the Phillips curve?
It's inflation and unemployment.
Yeah. So draw that out. You can draw that out. So, what the hell is that? All right. Sorry. So, correctly draw and label the long run Phillips curve and short run Phillips curve, recessionary gap. So, if we go here, you got inflation, you got unemployment, you got short run. Phillips curve. One second. All right. Okay. So where is on this? Where is recessionary? Where's the recessionary gap? Do you remember?
Short run would just shift. Short run would shift.
It'd be right here.
I think. Yeah. Or it wouldn't shift. It's just yeah.
And then, so what would happen with this one? So what would happen if aggregate demand falls? So if aggregate demand falls, then
Shift to the left. Or move to the
so we're in a recessionary gap. And if aggregate demand falls, what's going to happen then?
it'll move right.
Yeah. Not a great example, but now let's do this one. So I'll just draw. Mr. Rath apologizes too if I sound a little off. I had food poisoning yesterday. I wasn't here.
Where do you get food poisoning from?
I don't know, but it hit me hard 2 a.m, and I didn't get out of bed.
That's the worst.
Yeah, I didn't get out of bed yesterday until basically the whole day. I had to cancel. I feel bad. I've canceled twice. But the only reason I'm here today is because of you guys. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been here. Okay, so for at full employment, what happens when aggregate supply goes up? So aggregate supply increases. Do you remember?
It shifts the curve.
Yeah, shift opposite, right? It would shift that way. And then don't forget, Mr. Ross not doing a good job of labeling things. And then we would be here. And that's what it would look like. So we're going to do practice test, second period with the macro. And then we'll do probably an FRQ today. And then tomorrow, probably micro. I would normally, if we had more time, we'd go out and do a chalk kind of a thing, but I don't think we have time to do all that. After school today, I'll probably, if you wanted to join on Zoom, or you can come in, but I'm probably going to rehash this a little bit with kids.
Starts at 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll probably do this and maybe even go into a little bit of money. And then I'm going to do first unit of micro, which kind of goes with, but a little bit more detail than the first unit of macro. And then tomorrow, again in the morning, I'm not sure how many kids would show up. I'm just trying to give you guys opportunity. If nobody shows up, I'll just make a video. I mean, I didn't, because I got to get you guys enough review time here. And so I'm hoping these things help you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think just reviewing over it helps a lot.
Well, I'm hoping these graph things too. I know this seems like a lot. I'm not trying to give you guys extra work.
No.
I'm trying to.
Are these like due?
Maybe after the test, but I try to do them with you guys.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, And it's just me to give you guys easy points. Like if you guys can, my hope is you guys can do 90% of this just like that. Realistically, 70% of it just like that.
Yeah.
And let me stop this. And